Going on, guys? I want to start trying something a little bit new and different here, and I think I'm going to try to start doing a weekly shop update. I know I used to do them way back when, maybe once or twice a month, and I kind of fell out of the habit, and I've been thinking about it more and more lately, and I want to try to start getting a little bit more consistent with things like that. So I actually just set a weekly reminder to go off every week on my phone to remind me to film one, and we'll see how that goes. And who knows, this may be the last one I do for another 6 months, but the intention's there. I'm going to see what I can do, and I guess we'll do a little bit of an experiment. So, no real better way to start than just to dive right in. So, this is going to be the first one of hopefully a weekly update. And again, we'll see how it goes, what the response is, and go from there. But what I want to do, I really just want to talk about what's been going in the shop, just maybe some different stuff that I'm working on, or different ideas or plans, various little pieces of news or info, and just kind of whatever shakes out, and we'll go from there. I don't really have any outline or script for this one, so I'll more or less just be winging it. And it may go on for 10 minutes, may go on for 20, maybe even just 5. Again, I don't really have kind of a set schedule for now, other than to just try to do it consistently every week, whether it's just a little something or who knows, something a little bit more in depth. And ideally in the future, I'll have maybe a little bit more stuff to show you on camera. Probably for this one, I'll just be talking at you. So fair warning, if you want to increase that playback speed, go right ahead. If you want to skip around or move on, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Truth be told, I do these kind of things as much for me as anybody, as it's a good record to have, just to kind of look back on, just to see where I was or kind of what was going on at a given time. And I may look back on it a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and I'll probably be glad I had it versus not. So, that's part of the reason. The other reason, though, is, of course, to engage with you guys. So, let's start a dialogue, see what we can do. Again, try to get that consistency there. I do appreciate if you guys want to leave comments, ask questions, actually start a dialogue. That'd be great. I'll try to give those some attention if you want to comment below. Or not, and hit the like and subscribe, or do what you want there as well. And like I say, we'll see how it goes. So as far as what I've been working on lately or this week, well, I may as well just kind of talk about the last few weeks, since I haven't done an update in a while. I've been doing a lot of work on the CNC router that I built. Actually, quite a few upgrades here as of late, and I can show you. Ended up upgrading the motion system to linear rails and bearings, as opposed to the original V bearings, which are right here. And you can see how these were kind of set up. Not a terrible design, truth be told, but there was definitely room for improvement. I mean, there's a lot of adjustability in these, and that could be either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. And I was kind of leaning towards a bad thing there for a while. Like I say, the adjustability in a sense is good, but it also leaves a lot more room for error. So I was having trouble kind of getting everything dialed in just how I wanted it. And besides that, V-bearings on angle iron, which is what I was using, just introduces a lot of points for wear. So I was losing accuracy there. There's a lot of flex in the machine, not a whole lot of rigidity, and it just needed to be improved. So that's why I went with the linear guides and bearings, or rails and bearings. And it's not my idea, actually, that the original designer of the machine, Joe, from joecnc.com, he kind of pioneered that. He started a thread a while back where he kind of started putting some ideas for it together. And a few other guys have been doing it. Everybody seemed to like it, so I went ahead and made the investment. It was a little on the cost prohibitive side, but I think it has been worth it. As far as I could tell, it's a lot more rigid, it's smoother, it's more accurate, surface finish has been better, and it just more or less even simplified the overall design of the machine. It even gave me a little bit of additional travel on each axis, which is nice. Now the Z slide that I built, it already had linear bearings, and I really liked how those were working out, so it really only made sense to do the X and Y axis. And along with that upgrade, I actually ended up swapping my axes, X and Y. I had those kind of set up backwards initially for whatever reason. I also moved my limit switches accordingly. I had those kind of set up on the wrong side for homing. So I've got that. I also swapped out my screen set for Mach Blue so that I can use a triple edge finder. Now this one I made myself based on Bill Griggs' design from the Maker's Guide. So I'll give him credit for that. Also ended up including a little precision ground touch probe made from some 1/4-inch stock. I've got one side tapered just as kind of a center finder, or to help me visually find a point. And then this side, and this can be used for, you know, the corner finding or edge finding, as opposed to using like a single flute mill where there's voids on the sides. This is a little bit more accurate. And using this along with Mach Blue, it's definitely been a game changer. It's helped me reestablish zero if I've lost it in the middle of an operation for whatever reason. Maybe a stepper drive kicked out and I lost zero that way, or a bit broke or something jammed up and threw me out of square. I've been able to get everything back, you know, home everything and then go back and find my exact zero again. So that's definitely been an improvement there. So that's been a needed upgrade. And then another thing I did tonight actually was add these vents. I got one on this side and then one over there on the door with some little fans behind them. So those are filtered vents with one fan pulling air in and one fan blowing air out. That should take care of any thermal issues that I might have been seeing. Notice things were getting pretty warm in there, especially with the warm air in the shop now that it's getting close to summer here. I have lost a stepper drive once or twice, just kicking out. I'm assuming from thermal overload. So hopefully that'll help that. I guess we'll see. But it was needed whether it does or not. The only potential issue I'm wondering about though is that intake side, if it's going to pull dust in even with the filters. It may pull some fine dust in. Most of which I guess if it comes in should blow out, I guess theoretically. If anything, I could put a little better filter paper across that, or worst case, just reverse the fan and have both of them blowing out. Should be better than nothing. So that was a needed upgrade. Other than that, as if that's not enough, I really haven't done much else. So I'm definitely learning a lot, getting a lot dialed in, getting a lot better finishes and results than I have been, and just trying to make improvements all the time. I'm not going to tell you how many bits I've broken or how much material I waste on a weekly basis. But even that, I try to look at as an investment. I mean, it almost makes me sick sometimes when I crash a $20 carbide end mill or $25 end mill, or when I burn up, you know, a $10 or $15 or $20 piece of material. Actually, I ruined probably a $50 piece of aluminum the other day trying to make parts for this upgrade. And that about made me sick. But at the same time, it led to other improvements, you know, such as changing how I reference my origin point. You know, it kind of pushed me to go to the edge finder, corner finder, to reestablish zero if I lose it. And, you know, it's changed quite a bit because of that. So, in a sense, I'm just kind of paying for the education, you know, is the way I look at it. And, you know, you got to break a few eggs to make some omelets, as they say. And, you know, the alternative is to save all my money and not do any of this. So I don't want to go that route. You know, if I mess up, I mess up. It's just the nature of the beast, it's part of the game. And, you know, I think the more I do it, the less it affects me, just because it literally is a learning process. And it is an investment towards getting better and more knowledgeable and doing what I want to in the future, you know. 10 years from now, I may look back on this and kind of laugh. But I know, you know, if I don't go through that process of screwing stuff up, breaking tools, even breaking machines, you know, I won't get to that point 10 years from now where I can look back and say, yeah, you know, I had to go through that. So that's just one way to look at it. I'm not trying to turn this into any kind of inspirational or motivational update, but figured I'd just talk about that a little bit. As far as other things, you know, I won't talk about too much more before I cut this off. But this week I did take my surface grinder apart finally. Had some issues, long-standing issues with some tolerance problems. I was having some sticking issues with the head as I moved the spindle head up and down. It was sticking and dropping. That turned out to be a couple of things. One, I had a hole in a lubrication line for the column. I think I fixed that good enough. I just wrapped some self-sealing tape around it. It's actually very hard to find the appropriate replacement hoses for old machines that aren't made anymore, believe it or not. So for now, I'm doing the quick fix rather than spending $100, you know, on a hose and parts for a little 18-inch lube line that had a small hole in it. So I just did what I could to fix it for now. That should help the sticking issues in the column. And I also put in a new nut for the lead screw that has far, far less play in it. And already I could tell it's a lot stiffer to move the head up and down. Not in a bad way, but it just shows me how much play and how loose the original lead screw and nut were. I was actually able to keep the old lead screw, but I did get a new nut for it that I bored out the old one, drilled and inserted some set screws, and kind of pressed the new one in place with some grub screws. And it seems to be working so far. I actually did just a real preliminary test finish on a piece of mild steel. And already, from what I was seeing, I'm seeing surface finish improvements. I know it may not show up super well on camera. And I'm going to make a few more adjustments to even make that a little bit better. You know, I didn't dress the abrasive belt that I used. The only thing I really did was put everything back together, dress the contact wheel, and then take a quick rough pass. So I can get even a better finish than this, and ideally even take it up to a higher grit. I've also got some engineered abrasives that I bought specifically for the surface grinder that I'm going to split for that contact wheel and use that. I've got some other little odds and ends to adjust, but I hope to really be getting much better tolerances and finishes from the surface grinder in the coming weeks as well. And along with that, I also want to work on maybe making some shop stones like Robin Renzetti made. There's been a few other machinists on YouTube that have shown their versions. Basically, it's like a sharpening stone that you surface with a diamond wheel on your surface grinder, and it knocks down all those little abrasive peaks. So you're actually able then to use them to take down little burrs and high points like in machine tables and tooling and whatnot. And instead of actually cutting and removing material, it just knocks the high spots down. It's actually pretty incredible. If you go over to Robin Renzetti's channel, it's probably one of his more popular videos. but they're very expensive to buy from other machinists. But I want to see if I can make some myself. So that was part of the impetus for dialing in that surface grinder a little bit better, is for that. And also I'm going to start getting more into slip joints, and I want to increase my tolerances and finish on those, and other projects that I use for that. So it's a work in progress, but I've definitely made leaps and bounds with that this week. So that's another thing there. Another thing I had to do today, I had to fix my shop compressor. I came out today and my compressor was running, which isn't necessarily a unique thing. There's some very minor leaks and air lines around the shop. It kicks on from time to time. I've come to expect that. But normally it just kicks off after a few minutes of filling up, and that's it. But when I walked by this morning, I noticed that there was just heat like radiating off of that motor as I walked by to get to something on the bench over here. And it's kind of a habit anyway that I'll look at the air compressor air gauge just to see where it's at as far as when it's going to shut off. I looked at it this time and it was at 0. And I didn't notice it initially, but what had happened was the air separator, there where that hose is coming out, I've got a little air/oil separator there, or water separator rather, not an air separator. That'd be kind of pointless on a compressor, right? But the water/oil separator, the bulb actually had blown up. And how I noticed that was when I was walking up my stairs in the shop over here out of my basement. I saw a piece of plastic on the stairs, and it immediately dawned on me what it was from my shop compressor separator there. So that saved me quite a bit of troubleshooting. I was actually coming out to start taking the thing apart and taking lines off and trying to see if it was filling or if the check valve was bad or if a piston had come off the head. I mean, it didn't sound like it, but you know, there are a number of different things it could have been. A reed valve. Fortunately, I caught that as I was coming into the shop to work on it, and I saw that the jar was blown up. So not sure why that happened or when that happened. Obviously this morning early at some point, but just glad I wasn't standing next to it when it happened. I would have probably pissed myself. But hopefully it was just due to like maybe a cracked bulb, or you know, it was old. I don't see how anything else could have really contributed to that. So got a new one of those installed today. Everything's good as new on that, I hope. And that's pretty much it for that. As far as happenings today, I've been working more on some CNC projects. I'm also going to be doing some reorganizing of the shop. I've already moved a workbench over there to kind of open up some space. Need to do a lot of cleanup, organization, and throw some stuff away. I've got this Shopsmith here that I really don't use. I need to try to sell that or get rid of it. You know, it's got some sentimental value. My dad bought me that when I first bought this house. I think he paid like, well, I'm not going to tell you what he paid for it, but I did a lot of work with that machine. That was like one of the first tools I had in this shop before anything. I think the only other thing I had was like an angle grinder, maybe a hand drill, and that was about it, like a few hand tools. And so that really helped me do quite a few things. Even building my first belt grinder, I used it quite a bit for that. It has a drill press I used, a table saw that's been used, a disc sander I used a lot. It's been a really good machine. I just don't use it anymore. It's taking up space. And it's one of those like jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. It's more work to set up than it's worth. And I've got all the other dedicated tools already, so I'm going to try to get rid of that. Need to get rid of a lot of other junk and try to make this shop halfway usable. So that's something I'll be working on in the coming weeks. Other than that, like I say, we'll try to make this a weekly thing. I'll try not to make them all this long, and I want to keep this one right at about 20 minutes. So I'm going to call it a day, but let's look forward to the next week, guys. We'll see what's going on. Follow me here, follow my Instagram. And like I say, we'll see what shakes out and go from there. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you.